This conference will now be recorded.
Thank you, Naomi. Hi, everybody. Deanna Sylvester here. This is our third in a series of 3 little webinars on putting together your teaching portfolio. And so we'll continue where we left off last time and see if you have any questions as we go along. And if you can hear me and you have your camera on, give me a thumbs up. If you don't have your camera on, type in the little chat box that you can hear me, so I know we've got, I see some thumbs up, and excellent. And if you do have any questions as we go along, or comments or suggestions or anything, you can type in the little chat or questions box, whatever it's called, a question or a comment, or hey, I'd like to speak. And Naomi's monitoring that, so she'll be able to call on you and have you unmute yourself and talk. I'd love to hear your voices. You certainly don't have to do that if you don't have the microphone ability or whatever. You can type into the box and we'll answer it that way too. But if you do have the ability, I'd love to hear your voices if you have anything that comes up that you want to share or ask about. Okay, so where were we? Last time we were working on different items in our portfolio, and the last couple things that we haven't talked about yet are recording teaching videos and writing your statement of interest, why you would want to be a certified teacher. It's part of the application process as you're putting together your portfolio. So we'll talk about those things today. And then should you decide to apply for educator certification, then you'll be interested in how we go about that. So I'll kind of cover what the portfolio review process is, who's looking at your portfolio, and preview the little application portal. It's all online, so we'll just take a quick view of that and answer your questions. So today might be a little shorter than the other ones. Like I said, this is the first time we've gone through this webinar series, so how to break it up is one of our experiments here. And at the end, there's a link to an instructor evaluation for me and the content of this that I would love for you all to fill out. It's one of those SurveyMonkey things. And we'll email that to you in a follow-up email as well if you don't have time to fill that out today. It's only a couple questions, but that'll be at the end, like you have your students do. So there's that. Okay. So last time we talked about having items that you probably already have some version of, but you might need to beef them up a little bit to more explain how these types of documents help you meet the core competencies or demonstrate that you meet them. And so we talked about your resume, some people call it CV. We talked about course outlines and syllabi. We talked about lesson plans that include how you assess your students, not just your activities in the classroom and how you spend your time and how you cover certain things, but also how do you tell if your students are learning. So we talked about formative and summative assessments and showing evidence that students are doing those assessments or how you do them, how you implement them in the classroom. We talked about instructor evaluations, like I just mentioned. So you may collect all of those from your students yourself, or maybe your administration that you work for collects them and you get a summary. And we talked about that either one of those are possible. And we talked about letters of recommendation, who you should ask and what you should maybe suggest to them to put in those letters. So those are things. And then a lot of folks that are considering applying for the educator certification, these are the last couple items are the things they don't already have. Like you probably didn't even know there was educator certification before the last year when we've started kind of talking about it through the Alliance. So you probably don't have a statement of interest of why you want to be certified. So you're gonna have to write that. And you may or may not have any video of you teaching. So I didn't have any video of me teaching, and I've been teaching for almost 20 years. and I never thought about recording myself doing it. I've had people sit in and evaluate me and stuff, so this was something new to me. And now I'm just an expert at using my little smartphone to record stuff. So I've done all these silly little video tips on our website. You should go check them out. But so you're going to need to do that. And one of my suggestions is actually was in one of my tips was in your classroom to if you're going to teach something that you're particularly good at, or it's really one of your favorite topics, or you think it's really going to demonstrate some really cool core competencies, to hand your smartphone to one of your tech savvy students and have them record you. And so none of us have the ability to do that right now because we aren't in the room with our students. So maybe we're going to have to think about recording some sessions like this if you want to make your video recordings during this kind of lockdown time. So the whole reason to record yourself teaching in this process of developing a portfolio for application is to demonstrate certain competencies. So you need to think about what competencies you want to demonstrate. And the tricky part is the video can't be all that long. So you can't just, you know, if you have an hour class going on, record the whole thing and just submit the whole thing. You need to kind of be picky about, well, this certain 5 minutes, I really show my understanding of the content. This certain 5 minutes, I'm interacting with the students and I'm showing how I assess them, or I'm maybe helping a student physically, or maybe I'm observing a massage or something. So keeping track of the different core competencies for teachers is really important. That's why we started there in the first session, because not just any old video would do. You need to actually be really picky about what 5 minutes you record that demonstrates competency in one or more of those competencies. Does that make sense? So, and if it's longer than 10 minutes, first of all, the reviewers aren't going to look at it. It needs to be between 5 and 10 minutes. But the longer it is, the bigger file size it is. And so you do have to have a little bit of technical savvy. If you're using like an iPhone, this is how I learned what 720p HD means. Apparently it's some kind of high definition thing. And there's a setting that says 720p, and there's a setting that says 1080, so 1080p. And I don't know what the P stands for. Does anybody else? You all probably know. But anyways, if you do it at the higher number, then the file size becomes too large. And when you're uploading your files during the application process, there's a file size limit of 400 megabytes. And so, but I figured out that if you record it at 720, that even if you go the full 10 minutes, it's still going to be within the 400 megabyte size. So that's one of the things I learned in as far as technical savvy goes. And probably you have students or children or family members or someone who knows how to find that setting on your phone or your recording device in order to check what size or what high definition kind of thing you're recording at. So that's just kind of the technical side of it. And the fact that you need to be the actual person who appears in the video. So if you're doing something with your students or it's part of a discussion, it's okay if they also appear in the video, but we want to see you and what you're doing and what you're saying and how you're behaving. So make sure you're the one. And this little link that you'll get, or you can find it on our website, or you'll get it when you get the follow-up email, is my original tip on how to create a teaching video and what you might want to include in it. But the basic idea is, what standards are you trying to meet? What standards are you demonstrating in your video? And so right now we can't be in the classroom, and I've had several people ask me, well, I'm teaching online, or I'm doing this thing with students online, can I record that? And my question would still remain the same. What standards are you trying to demonstrate? And if you can do that in the online format, I don't see why you couldn't, as long as you appear in the frame. So for example, on the recordings of these webinars I'm doing, usually Naomi's doing the recording, so I would have to defer to her on how she's doing that, but I think it's just hit record and my slides are showing and a video of me talking is showing. And so I would have to probably limit that to certain criteria in the core competencies that you can demonstrate in a lecture format or discussion format, and probably not in a massage skill format, unless I was demonstrating something. Like I had my massage table set up over here and demonstrated something, then maybe that would be another example. But there's nothing in the application process or in any of the competencies that say that delineate between whether you're presenting in an online format or in a live classroom setting. So you could record your videos in this format if you chose to do so, and you had the time to do it right now. So somebody's asking in the little chat box or saying that you're recording each class with your Zoom call that you're doing classes in. Yeah, so it seems to me that would work if you're in the video, and I think Zoom actually records all the different screens of your students too, right? So as long as you're the one in the video, it seems to me that would work. Now, I don't know what the file size is and all that. You'd probably have to measure that and stuff, but it seems like that if you're demonstrating certain competencies, that would work. Sure.
And someone also mentioned, Luann, I have students that have recorded her in the past, she says me, her students recorded her, and would she be able to use one of those recordings if the student is okay with it?
Yeah, I would, obviously get your students' permission. You'd have to have their permission to get them to share the video with you. And the other thought too is if one or more of your students appear in the video, you might want to get their permission to share that video. So when you turn in your portfolio for application to be reviewed, we don't make these videos public. They aren't being posted anywhere where anybody else can see them. But folks in the Alliance for Massage Therapy Education have access. So myself, the portfolio reviewers, administration have access to these videos. So we like to know that you had permission to film those folks. So you might want to just say, get your students to say, yeah, I'm okay with being in your teaching portfolio video. And it might be something you use for other things later in your career, and it'd be nice to get those, it'd be ethically correct to get their permission ahead of time. So I would just recommend doing that anyways.
This is one thing that it just reminded me of, Deanna, where you just said you could maybe use these things in other ways. One thing that I'm noticing more and more on, let's say a school or C provider has, a Facebook, increasingly people are sharing videos of themselves teaching a little blip of something, or, talking about a topic, demonstrating a technique, for example. They're sharing that content on their Facebooks, and there's some marketing value to it, and students can just love it. And so one thing that's great is sometimes people overcome this little hurdle of learning how to make videos and, finding out a student to help them or something like that. But then they're also able to use them for these other purposes. So I just wanted to chime in on that.
Yeah, see, I think that's great. And some people are doing the Facebook Live thing and recording, and those get recorded so you can watch them over and over. If any of those kinds of recordings that you've done for other purposes may demonstrate your competency in one or more of the standards, and it's 5 minutes long, if it's between 5 and 10 minutes long, it seems like you may already have some things that you could look through and say, you know what, I think this is a really good, ooh, I look good in this one, I'm going to turn this one. Of course, we don't care what you look like, we care what you're doing, but you should look back and check those out and see if it's something that already works for you. And I certainly believe in, you know, if I'm running a school, I want my future or prospective students to see my best teachers, and those videos would be very valuable, I think, to your school owners and administrators to use if you work in those settings. Because if you're on this webinar, let's face it, you're already a fantastic teacher. I mean, you care about being here, so we want your pretty mugs on these videos. Okay, let's see here. Any other thoughts or questions about making videos? I think it's so much more common now for folks to be able to do that than even, you know, a few years ago. We'd have to have some big old recording camera in the classroom, and I never had the patience for that. So, any other questions in the chat box, Naomi? All right. I want to talk
Sorry,
about
I
your
was muted.
statement.
There's
Oh, go
not
ahead.
really any other questions, I think. I mean, Jeanette asked if they need to include the student permission in the portfolio. It was my understanding that that's just something they keep on hand. Is that correct?
Yeah, that was just something we're recommending for you to do as the owner of your portfolio, as part of your portfolio, but we don't ask for that in the application portal. Good question though. So let's talk about making a statement about yourself. Sometimes this is the hardest thing to do, but I think it's my favorite thing to read when someone turns in, you know, what is it? Why do you want to be a certified educator? What do you think about? And I italicized all of the second person items in these questions because when myself and the portfolio reviewers are reading your statement, we want to know why you want to be certified, not why someone should be certified, although you could include that in your statement. But why is it important to you? What is your approach to teaching? How do you apply the core competencies in your classroom? What's your philosophy? What is your attitude about that? What do you even believe about these things? Because we all have our own opinions, but you all are experts in this too. We'd love to hear what you guys have to say about your own personal teaching philosophy, how you approach it, and how that kind of shows your connection to these overarching kind of core competencies of what we believe makes a decent teacher, right? How do you fit in that? What does that picture look like in your classroom? So I was just when I made this slide, silly me, I'm sitting here thinking, what statement would Socrates make about his own philosophy? Or would he just ask us these questions so we would think of them ourselves, right? We would come up with the answers. He would lead us through it. Anyways, the other thing really to think about, you know, putting yourself in the statement, but the other thing really to think about is maybe include a couple specific examples from the 4 different categories. So remember, the core competencies are organized in 4 different categories. You have your learner and learning. You have your, where's my little arrow? There we go. Things about learner and learning. How do you show that you know or can demonstrate, or what's your attitude toward those things? The content, I think that tends to be a little easier for us to demonstrate because we are usually content experts first before we even figured out how to teach this stuff. But how do you practice instruction? How do you understand and prepare for instruction? And then what about that professional responsibility? So you should try to include specific examples in those 4 different categories, because that can really address more than one of the standards under each of those categories, depending on how you share it. So just reiterating your thoughts on it in any of those categories, but specifically, and why I recommend that you write your statement last after you've accumulated all your other portfolio items and got them all together, and you look through and you say, okay, I've demonstrated all these 10 standards in these different ways. And let's say that you really feel like you gave good evidence for standards 1 through 6, and you gave great evidence for 7 and 8 and 10, but 9, you know, and I'm just randomly picking numbers here, but let's say standard 9, you felt like, you know, in 1 or 2 of your items in your portfolio, you gave evidence, but you really want to talk about your thoughts about that particular standard because you feel like you need a little more evidence. So what I mean by evidence is, we assume, here's well, it's like being presumed innocent until you're proven guilty, okay? So we assume you already meet all these core competencies. That's why you're applying to be certified. But you have, it's the burden of proof is on you to show that you have the evidence, show us evidence that you meet all of these things. So that's why putting together your portfolio items is really important in seeing, okay, I've demonstrated all of these competencies. And if you feel like there's any of them that you could just, you can't figure out how to provide a little more evidence, that's the opportunity to write about that in your statement, right? So you're going to describe your thoughts. Remember the KSAs, the knowledge, the skills, and the attitudes. What do you know about that standard, and what's your attitude about it? And you can actually say, here's how I exemplify that in my life, or in my classroom, or in my interactions with students, or in my interactions with colleagues or the profession at large. You should say that in your statement because it's your statement, and you know how you apply this stuff. So it's really your opportunity to kind of take your whole portfolio of teaching, your whole life as a teacher, and put it in a neat little package. Here's how I want you to see me. Here's all of my portfolio items, but here's my statement how I want you to see me as a teacher. So, and I think it's difficult sometimes for us to do a little bragging about ourselves, what we're good at, but this is your opportunity to say, I'm pretty good at this. And you'll see that in my instructor evaluations, and you'll see that in my video, but here's why I think I'm good at it, or something. You know, it's not an arrogance, it's a tell the truth about yourself, even if you're a real humble person and not used to doing that, right? So I that's how I see this statement. That's how the reviewers have talked to me about it when they're looking for evidence, and when they're reading through your statement, and why you want to be certified, and how you think about these things. Again, you probably aren't, your first sentence isn't going to be, I became a teacher because I want to be rich and famous. Or maybe you did, but that doesn't happen for most of us. So, and probably not. It's probably because you just really love what you do, and you want to help other people do it too. You know, in some form of that statement, it's probably going to be in your statement, because that's what we do. Any other thoughts about that? Oh, and by the way, you know, it has to be kept within 2 pages. So, see, I'm a talker. I'm not a well, I'm also a writer, but I write in a very different format than I speak. But you know, fitting something in 2 pages after I've just told you to shove all of this stuff in it might be tricky, but you can do it. Take your notes as you're gathering all your other items in your portfolio, and figure out how you want to present yourself. So this is the packaging that you're putting the neat little present into your application. What are your thoughts about that? Any questions about that? You guys
I'm
are
not
quiet
seeing
today.
questions. I do want to remind people that if they'd like to ask their questions, verbally, just go ahead and, put in the chat box, I have a question, and I can unmute you. You can even do that while she's talking. I'll wait till there's a pause or whatnot to unmute you. But I know sometimes it's easier to ask your question verbally than to write it. So I just wanted to remind you all.
Yes, thank you. And thanks, Naomi. I'm just realizing I didn't mute my phone. There we go. Yeah, so let's talk a little bit about the application for educator certification and kind of understand the review process, who's looking at your portfolio and things like that. I guess before we do that though, and I know I already called for questions, but does anybody have any questions that have been here last week or the week before and you didn't get your question asked or answered? Anything that we've talked about as far as the different items of the portfolio, or maybe any questions about, hey, mine looks like this, do you think that would work in the application? Does anybody have any questions or even suggestions or comments so far? This is that break point. And certainly I'd love to hear your voice if you actually had one. So I always have to hear my voice. And it's crackly.
We like your voice, Deanna.
Well, and it's all crackly because it's allergy season. I don't know. That's what it is around here. In Arizona, we're about to go into the 90s, and we may hit 100 next week. So for us, this is like the last ditch effort of decent weather, and everything's blooming. So there's my plight.
Anna, I have a question. So
Sure.
you were talking about the video, and I'm not sure if you're going to get to this, but you mentioned the size when they were talking about the Zoom recording. Is this coming up later, or as far as in your presentation, as far as dealing with the size and just kind of strategies and awareness about ways to make sure that their video clips are captured in a way that then they're able to submit their videos?
Yeah, so the only suggestion I would make based on my own technical knowledge, which is a little limited, is to record it at that lower definition so that the file size stays smaller. And what will come up later in today's talk is the application portal, where I'll show you where you upload the different files, and the videos are the only ones that become a really giant file. And so once something's recorded, let's say you have something already recorded, you don't even know how big the file is. You would have to go back and look and see how big the file is. And let's say it's more than that maximum limit, which is 400 megs. I believe there are ways to make it smaller. There's ways to adjust the definition, I believe, or maybe you're going to have to cut it down to be something shorter. But I think I'm definitely not qualified to answer any larger questions than that in this format. But what we can do is, if you have a video or technical questions about a video, email me or call me and let's talk about what they are, and then we'll find the person or the solution for you when it comes to that. So I have a lot of people in my web of influence that are very technically savvy and could help adjust a video if it needed to be and things like that. I'm not sure if that's the
Yeah, you're talking about me, Deanna. By the way, well, I kind of set myself up for this, but we haven't had this problem yet, but I'm actually ready for it. And so, definitely if you're having a challenge because your video is too large, it's what you've captured, and you're like, wait, it's not working. I definitely don't want people to trip and fall over that block. I could help also with reducing the size of your file and whatnot. So reach out to Deanna, reach out to me directly. If you reach out to Deanna, she can get me in on it, and I can help you with that too. And it seems like Luann has a question. It looks like she's unmuted too. Luann, are you there?
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh,
Who has the question? Luann wants to ask a question. Okay, Luann first.
For some reason it says off though, and her photo looks paused. So maybe she's having
maybe she's
a technical difficulty. So we'll come back to her once it says on again.
Yeah, I think.
Okay.
Does Sarah have a question, or she typed something in? Let's see.
Sarah, this is what I'm understanding for the statement of interest and what to put in it. Why I want to do this, a couple core competencies with KSAs, all within 2 pages.
Nailed it. Yeah, so in the statement of interest, why are you doing this? Why do you do what you do? Why do you want to be certified? And yeah, a couple of the core competencies maybe that really speak to you or that you really feel like you want to talk about, and talk about your level of understanding, your knowledge, your skills, what you do, and your attitudes toward it. So yeah, and all within 2 pages. Now you can make it single spaced, you don't have to double space it. So if you need to squeeze that in, do that. Did we get Luann back?
She's back. She said her internet's been spotty. Luann, I'm going to go ahead and unmute you, and should be able to maybe. I don't know, maybe it's freezing up again.
Okay.
For her.
Luann, if you can hear us, when you're back, just start talking and we'll stop what we're doing and address your question right away.
Yeah, her name's Gray now. It's kind of weird, so we'll let her type her question in, and when we get it, I'll interrupt you, okay. Deanna.
All right, perfect. Were there any others? I didn't see if there were any others there.
Not right now.
Okay. So let's say you're ready, you're putting together your portfolio and you're thinking, well, who the heck's looking at my portfolio? Who are these people that are going to be reviewing my portfolio? We're sending them to Harvard. No, I'm just kidding. Well, I don't know, maybe some of our teachers work at Harvard, but I kind of doubt it. So the people reviewing your portfolios when they come in as part of the application process are educators just like you. They just happen to have volunteered to go through this extensive beta testing of this of the portfolio review process that was developed back in 2018. A whole study was done whether or not we thought this was whether or not this would be a viable way to evaluate competencies, to evaluate whether someone meets or exceeds those 10 standards that are in the core competencies. And so they went through this extensive, they did extensive study of the core competencies, and they were trained in teaching portfolios in general, this particular portfolio review process, and using the rubric. They helped develop the rubric for it. And they were also trained in this online submission software that I'll show you a picture of in a minute. But these are folks that have been teaching massage, just like you, in one form or another, maybe continuing education, maybe in entry-level programs, maybe both. Massage therapy and body work. I think one of them is also shiatsu practitioner and teacher. So folks that are used to doing what you do, standing up there in front of the classroom, taking the hits when it's difficult, being amazing when you're amazing, and going through and understanding what it means to be a good teacher, what it means to meet these standards of teaching and learning. So they're doing what you're doing. They just happen to have gone through this with us to really understand what they're looking for in the portfolios. So it's to your great advantage that people who know what it feels like to teach massage are the ones looking at your portfolio, watching your videos, reading your statement, things like that. And they're using this simple rubric for every single standard. What they do is they remind themselves what standard 1 is, and they read it. They have the whole core competencies sitting on their desk. I've talked to each one of them, and they actually do that. They go to standard 1, and then they start looking at all your portfolio items and see if there is evidence of standard 1 in any one of those. So they go through every single standard and do the same thing. They mark off where they found evidence, and then they decide, does this teacher, based on the evidence, does this teacher meet the expectations for this standard or not? They also get to choose another option, which is based on the evidence. I suspect they meet this. I just don't feel like there was enough evidence presented. And so they get to check this little box at the bottom that says they need more evidence. And what happens is, if you're in the application process and one of the reviewers calls me or sends me an email and say, hey, I need more evidence for standard 2 from Dee Dee, then I call up Dee Dee and I say, hey, Dee Dee, we need more evidence for standard 2. So then it's on you to go back to standard 2 and read that and figure out, do I need to make another video? Do I need to write a statement? Do I need to come up with something else? Now, the truth is, we haven't had to do this yet because people have been preparing really awesome portfolios. But just so you know, that if the reviewers have the option to not check that does not meet box, they actually could say, you know, I kind of suspect that they meet this competency, but I just want a little more evidence, and so I'll go back to you and help them get the evidence that they need. And if for some reason you're not able to demonstrate competency in that standard, we'll have a different conversation. But that just hasn't happened yet. And I suspect people putting together their portfolios, the ones I've looked at so far, have taken really good care to kind of try to demonstrate, you know, you meet these things, but just try to, how do I demonstrate that in my portfolio? Is really kind of a fun activity. To me, the most important part of this whole process is the self-evaluation process. Whether you end up applying for certification or not, you learn a lot about what you do and what you don't do, and actually what you might want to work on in your future teaching and over time. So it's a really valuable process, and this rubric is, you can download it from our website too, so you could actually, you know, go through and check those things off for yourself as part of your checklist protocol. Review your own portfolio. Get together, but stay 6 feet apart and share portfolios with each other. And maybe, you know, review each other's portfolios. That actually sounds like fun activity. Maybe, Naomi, in next year's Educator Congress, I forget where it's going to be next year, but when we get together again, we should do one of those, hey, bring all your portfolios, let's exchange and look at each other's portfolios. That'd be kind of fun, I think.
It's Austin. I don't know, you and I have different definitions of fun. No, I'm just kidding. I'm playing.
I'm
Nerd
the
fun.
nerdy kind of fun. Other people, oh yeah, it's going to be in Austin. So my other kind of fun will be, of course, going to see the music venues, but we'll talk about that later. That's
and
right.
Deanna, there are a couple more questions. Okay. So Luann's question, she did submit it. So hers is, if you want verification for every class that is taught or just one or two. And then Sarah has a related question. What about science classes, and do these count?
So yeah, so as first, verification for every class that's taught. Nope. You are going to choose what class you want to submit your portfolio for. So most of your evidence will come from one class, maybe a CE workshop that you teach or a particular course in an entry-level program. If you want to, and science classes do count. So let's say you teach anatomy, physiology, maybe you teach pathology or something like that, that's more of a more didactic course or more informational course, it certainly counts because you're still doing all of these things in order to help people learn. So you have to have these certain competencies in order to do that. So you have to understand learner and development. You have to understand learning environments. You do assess your students. You might not be observing them do massage, but you're assessing them, usually with quizzes or some kind of tests and stuff like that. But there are other ways, and you can share with us how you do it in your classroom. I think that there's a way, I was a science teacher way before I was a massage therapist. So I know that as I'm reading through the core competencies, those are things you want to have an understanding of and skill set to do no matter what subject you're teaching. And we all know that the science classes are directly involved in massage therapy, so I think it's also relatable in that way. So I think you could certainly submit a really good portfolio with a science class if you wanted to. So yeah. Yay, scientists. Do your science classes. So let's say you're ready to apply. Where are you going to do that? You probably already know. You go to our website, afmte.org, and you click on pay your application fee or whatever the button says there that Naomi created. Hey, if you haven't been on our website in a while, by the way, it's really fantastic. It's been all updated and it's all really cool, so you should go check it out. Probably you have. That's how you registered for these webinars, now that I think about it. Yeah, you've already been there, but keep going. And in particular, go to the pay your application fee. So if you want to apply for educator certification, it's a $249 application fee. But if you're a member of the Alliance, there's a special member pricing of $199. So I guess that's $50 off. And also right now there's this promotion that ABMP is running where they'll pay $100 of your application fee. So check our website for the details on that, but that's for a limited time and for a limited number of ABMP members that would get to benefit from that. So it could be a good time to pay your application fee. And one of the questions I get a lot is, well, I'm not ready yet. I don't have all my portfolio items together. And the truth is you can pay your application and then take your time to gather your portfolio and put it together and submit that separately. Because what happens is after you pay your application fee, then we send you a link to the actual application submission portal. And that's on a site called submittable.com. It's a company that handles portfolios and gathering this information for us. And so we're really excited to have this site for you to be able to use. And so even if you have your own Alliance account where you log into our website, when you go to submit your application, you actually have to have one of these submittable.com accounts. So you'll see you do your little create your account here. And once you do that, you get to log in and start putting in information. So the types of, you'll either have boxes to fill in information. So maybe you'll copy your teaching experience from your resume into that box. So there'll be boxes to fill things in. Or you'll have the ability to upload files. So for example, in this screenshot of where you upload your syllabus, you'll tell us if it's an entry-level classroom type course or a continuing education type course. And then you'll click on choose file and you'll upload your syllabus. And you can see, hopefully you can see on the screen, if it's not too small, there's a ton of different acceptable files types. So if you have a Word doc or a PDF, or just take a picture of it with your phone and it's a JPEG. So there's a bunch of different file types you can upload. So I think it's probably kind of fits the criteria for everything. But you'll upload each file separately. So you have your lesson plan, this says lesson plan 1 because you actually have to submit 2 lesson plans. So there'll be another button to choose the lesson plan number 2. And my favorite part about this whole submission portal is you can go there and start filling out the things and upload a few files. But let's say you don't have your videos done yet. So you get to click on saved draft and it'll save what you've already done. And you can come log back in and finish submitting everything at a later time. So you don't have to do it all right. You don't have to do it all right now at the exact same time, because that always makes me nervous. Because what if my internet goes down and now I've got to redo all of those things? So no, you just get to save your draft. And then when you come back and you finish uploading the different files, you can click on submit portfolio. And when you do that, I get a message that says, hey, there's a portfolio waiting. And then I get the reviewers involved and they're really excited to get to see your portfolio. So that's how that works. Let's see. I don't think I had a picture of the, well, when you upload your videos, it looks just like this, only it has a little bit different types of files. So there's, you know, MP4s and different types of video files. It'll tell you what kinds those are. And that's where it says, hey, there's a 400 megabyte limit. So when you go to upload it, if it happens to be bigger than that, it'll tell you. But other than that, it should upload just like all these other files. Hopefully that makes sense to those of you who are in the techie world. You'd think I'd know a little bit more about it since I make these video tips all the time. But I see that there's a question, does our school membership qualify for the discount? Not sure, I still have my individual membership. So are you talking about your Alliance membership or ABMP, Brenda?
Brenda is a school member. I believe she's probably talking about her school membership because she also does have an individual Potomac, right? But yes, your school membership will actually qualify you, Brenda, and there is a link. So the last time you renewed, you would have gotten that confirmation email, and if you click in that email, it's going to take you to a place where you'll be able, as a school, to go ahead and buy it at that discounted price. Now, if you're an ABMP member and a school member, I'm going to go ahead and say, just email me and I'm going to send you an email, because if you're trying to get both discounts, it can get a little bit complex. And if you would like me to resend you that link, I'm happy to do so, Brenda. I'll just go ahead and send you that email link because I know you're a member. But yeah, just so you all know, I mean, if your entire school does have that membership, then you can qualify. And it's one thing to think about. If you're a teacher at a school, you know, maybe your school, you know, maybe instead of just getting a teacher membership, maybe your school actually wants to try to help get multiple individuals, instructors certified. You may reach out to your program director and say, hey, look, there's this awesome benefit, you know, for being an Alliance member. You know, we could all get certified and save a lot of money on our certification, you know. So that's just one thing to keep in mind. If you're a teacher at a school, is that you might want to talk to your program director and suggest that if they're interested in having other people at the school get certified, they might want to consider getting the certified educator. Recently, we heard about one school that just applied for a grant to get all of their instructors certified. And so they're using a grant. This was a community college, but they're getting grant money to get everybody certified. So that's also another helpful thing to know. And okay, that's helpful to know, Brenda. I'll follow up with you with an email. She's telling me she's both ABMP and school. So that's a special link, and I'm going to send it to you.
Perfect. Yeah, I was excited to hear about that community college is applying for a grant to get everybody certified, because someone we know who's already certified, who works at a community college, got a raise because she got certified. I don't know that everybody's going to be doing that, but isn't that wouldn't that be a great portfolio boost? Hey, I get paid more because I'm a certified teacher. that'll be my next campaign. We'll see how that works. But so going forward, if you have questions about the application process, the portfolio process, any of the portfolio items, certification in general, or just how to communicate with other teachers who might be doing what you're doing, that's what we're here for, and that's why we're doing this in the first place. And if you are going through and doing your self-assessment and trying to see where you meet, and you just want some more information or some more training in the subjects of teaching and learning, an online place to go right now is afmtetraining.org. There's a company called Max Knowledge Online Training Center that has put together a bunch of courses specifically in teaching that they picked out just for our kinds of teachers. So vocational type of programs, specifically there are a couple that are for massage teachers, and not just teachers, but also faculty and staff and student support services. Those kinds of things are on here. So if you're just thinking, if you want to just browse through and say, there might be some things you might want to learn, that's available too right now in person, rather than taking in-person courses. Somebody's asking, can you resubmit your portfolio if it needs work or isn't quite right? Yeah, if during the portfolio review process, what we're doing right now, what we've discussed as reviewers, is to go through it, and if we feel like there's significant things missing, obviously if one of the items is missing, I'm going to call you and say, hey, you didn't turn in your syllabus. But if there's some real gaps that we notice, we're going to help you fill those gaps. We're going to have specific suggestions from teachers who have training in education on what you might want to do, whether it's take a course or just work on a particular skill set to meet a certain core competencies. So as far as resubmitting the portfolio, probably not the whole thing, but we may have you submit additional evidence in addition to the portfolio items if we think that that we just don't have enough evidence of the core competencies. So, and that would be on an individual basis that you and I would have a conversation about. Does that make sense? Hopefully. So there's that. Now, if you haven't heard, hopefully you've heard that on Sundays we're doing the Sunday conversations. It's like a Q&A discussion just for teachers, just to kind of get together and commiserate and share ideas, how we're doing out in the online world, if we're able to do that. Some schools have just been closed, and so some of us don't have anything to do right now, and we're trying to figure out when we get to go back and what we get to do. And these have been really good conversations. This Sunday, and we have different featured presenters every week. This Sunday, Don Hogue from CompTA and Deborah Persinger from the Federation for State Massage Boards are going to be the presenters, and that sounds like a really good conversation. So if you guys have time on Sundays, you should definitely join us doing that. I see Jeanette says that the shutdown has blown our current syllabus all to heck. Does that matter? It's true, right? So still use that syllabus when you turn in your portfolio, because you developed it for a reason. It actually is demonstrating your, how you prepare for a course, your understandings, how you outline certain things. So I think, it's a viable syllabus. It's one that you used when you introduced your students, whether you're continuing that. I'd be curious to see, though, how people are adjusting their syllabi for this format, and how, some of the adjustments we're making, are we going to keep them going forward or go back to how we used to do things? I'm so curious about all this that that's a whole nother discussion, I'm sure. But the Sunday things are recorded, just like today's thing is being recorded. So you can actually visit our blog go to afmte.org and go to, I think it's /blog. I apologize if that's not the link, but I think it is. But click on blog, and that's where all the latest updates are posted. Whatever's happened recently, there'll be a recording of it in that list. So check back there. That's where we keep all our latest updates. You can always email me if you have questions, and I can send you links to stuff too, and Naomi, of course, too. And after we're done today, this SurveyMonkey link is where you'll get to evaluate this particular webinar series and me, so that we can know how to make adjustments to be better when we run this again, now that we've kind of, tried to figure out how to help people prepare for their portfolios. We want to know what worked and what didn't work. Same kind of questions you ask your students, so please answer those for me. And are there any other questions, comments?
Well, Deanna, I just wanted to say, oh, sorry, what did you say?
I said, how's everybody doing? Is everybody okay out there in lockdown land?
Right, that's the first thing I want to know. How's everyone doing? Well, and I just wanted to say, it is all of these videos are in the FMT blog. That is the right link. And if you're particularly looking for the Sunday conversation videos, that's pinned at the top. And so it's literally, there's a blog post at the top. If you go to AFMT/blog, org blog, the very first top one's got all of the video recordings, and I'll keep updating that every week, so you'll be able to see them. Jeanette did actually raise a question that was related to what you were saying about kind of what you're curious about, how these adaptations to syllabi. She said, well, the shutdown has kind of blown their current syllabus all to heck. Does that matter for what they would be submitting for their portfolio? Right.
Yeah, and I kind of answered that I believe you should just go ahead and submit the one you wrote in the beginning, understanding that. And the truth is, if you're writing a new syllabus right now because you've got students that think they're starting school in June or July, you could use that as well. I think just going back to asking yourself, okay, what about this syllabus helps me demonstrate competency in any of the core competencies, and how do I apply this? So how do I use this syllabus? I actually, it's a contract between me and my students, or it helps me outline the learning objectives for the course. However you use that to demonstrate your how you meet the standards. I think that's the question you should ask yourself. So certainly doesn't matter whether you're following it right now, because all of us are in that same boat, right? We're all kind of like, well, we started out in January or February doing one thing, and we're doing something significantly different now.
Also, I'm getting a question kind of to me, but I wanted to make an announcement. I mean, if you're curious, if you've been a member and you're like, when is my expiration? Am I expired? You want to check on your member expiration dates? Let me know. If you can't figure out where to find the links, if you wanted to just kind of start, just go to afmt.org. There's like 2 buttons. One says Get Certified. You click that, and on the right, there should be, in the sidebar, you're going to see one that says Pay Application Fee Now. If you're a member, you log in. There's a separate button. It says Limited Time Offer. If you have an ABNP, individual membership, that's the one you're going to click. And so just to kind of give you a sense, like, you can look for those 2 buttons, but please feel free to reach out to me if you have a question about, and I can help you do it all over the phone, or if you need a check. I mean, not everybody wants to just sign up online. So I love chit-chatting with you. I have great conversations with people when they sign up. So always, feel free to reach out to me, Naomi@afmt.org.
I wonder if my internet will let me bring up the site right now. I'm trying. If my screen is still being shared, so they come here, Naomi, and then what?
Yeah, and so if you're not a member and you want to get one first, say you get that member benefit, you will sign up first, and then the links are going to change. But let's say you already have that. She's going there.
Yeah,
So you
click
can
on
see
there.
this is, yeah, that should be pretty straightforward if you're
Oh,
trying to get a membership. And if you
mine,
don't already have one, yeah. So there's
mine
that
knows I'm
whole
a
path.
membership, mine knows I'm a member, so it put that. But if you're not, then you can say, have an account, click here to log in, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's one of the things.
That's a whole pathway to, getting signed up. And then if you go back, because a lot of these people actually are members, I could tell by their names. And so, you're already, and you might have forgotten your password or something. If you need help with that, there should be links, but if you can't find it, let me know. So where it says new, get certified, oh, you already scrolled it. It's really at the top. I tried it. Yep, new, get certified with our new educator. Get involved. It's right next to the orange button on the right.
Oh, this
Yes.
one. Get certified.
Yes, you can just click right there. Maybe I should make it a color. But then on the right, so first off, if you're not on the newsletter, just scroll for me, please.
Yep, subscribe
you could
here.
consider signing up for that so you get emails about things like the Sunday conversation, just so you know. And then scroll down a little bit more. So if you're just an AFMT member or you don't even want to become an AFMT member, that's fine. Click there. If you scroll down a little bit further, this is the button you'll click if you're an ABMP member, and it will allow you to log in if you have an AFMT membership. And so those are those are basically the two options. And if you are an AFMT member, just click where it says AFMT members save even more, log in, and that will bring down the extra $50 to you pay $99.
Yep. Wow.
Thank you, Deanna.
All right.
I
Yeah,
really
I thought
appreciate you bringing that up. Sometimes it's easier for people if they see it.
Yeah, exactly. It was helpful for me to kind of try to look at what you were talking about, because I've been to all these places on our website and I still need to look at them. So, well, that's it. We have ran into our hour, and I really appreciate your time and your dedication to education, and specifically massage and bodywork education. So please let us know how this worked for you, or where you're at with the process. If you're just doing the self-evaluation, but maybe you aren't putting together a portfolio, or you're putting together your portfolio, but maybe you're not interested in certification. I'd love to know why. I'm just curious what your thoughts are about it in general. And I know the membership, our membership, is interested in knowing too, because this is really important mission for us. So let us know how this has helped, and how we can do it better in the survey link that you'll get. And keep up the good work. Stay safe and healthy out there. And if you are a massage practitioner and you'll be returning to work when it's safe to do so, I wish you and all of your clients the best, because we know how touch is so helpful in stressful times, and we can't do it right now. And I'm with you in that difficult space. So thinking about you guys and thinking about our whole profession, and just keep up the good work. And hopefully we'll talk again soon.